When centrist Democrats use the term purity test, I believe they are enacting a subtle form of every accusation is a confession. Now, I think we're all familiar with this formula as it applies to fascists. Fascists accuse leftists of perversion while electing a rapist. They accuse queer people and trans people of grooming minors while they harbor pedophiles in their midst. They accuse anti-genocide and Antifa protesters of violence against their state monopoly over violence. They say that radicals are assaulting innocent ICE agents. It's easy to see because it's all out there in the streets. What I want to point out is that in the rhetorical sphere, when Democrats use the term purity test against leftists, the reason it feels so wrong, so enraging, and so incoherent is that it is a form of the same projective hypocrisy that we're familiar with from fascists. So how does it work? In general, the great center-right resurrection of the Democratic Party out of the ashes of the Harris campaign is fueled by the lie that Harris lost because she ran too woke. She appeased too many special interest groups. She lost because she said too many nice things about trans people in 2019. Now, never mind the fact that throughout her campaign, she did none of those things while actively co-signing the checks on the ongoing genocide in Gaza. So what we're being told now from the Abundance Faction and the Searchlight Institute and other groups like this is that the left lost the middle because the left are ideological purists, concentrating on meaningless issues like trans people in sports, or systemic racism, or decolonization, or reparations for slavery, or being against genocide in Gaza. We are told that these are fringe issues that do not poll well in red states. They are therefore outside the sphere of normal concerns. They are not mainstream. They are not in the center. So do you know what another term is for not being in the center? They are impure concerns. They are complicated concerns. They are messy concerns. And so in practice, this shakes out to the Democratic centrist accusing the trans rights activist of standing too firmly on principle to allow for a cohesive coalition. It shakes out as telling the uncommitted movement of Arab Americans, many of whom probably voted for Harris anyway, after democratically exerting the only rhetorical pressure they had on a campaign that was falling flat during the most obvious moral catastrophe of a generation, that they were the ideological Puritans. We are told that people who stick by leftist principles are too selfish about their singular concerns to be able to get on board and door knock for Harris in 2024 or Gavin Newsom in a few months. But when an accusation is really a confession, it is issued to cover something over, something embarrassing. And what the centrist Democrat is doing with the accusation that their leftist neighbor is ruining progress with purity tests is that they themselves are always already appealing to an ideologically pure standard. Because the real purity politics present in the Democratic Party is near hegemony on Israel, its substantial agreement with the GOP on immigration, its full-throated support of most military spending, its willingness to militarize the police in urban centers and to send them in to crack the heads of student protesters, its commitment to Moneyball reformism, its commitment to resisting economic populism or never substantially challenging the oil economy, and in its near uniform habit of kicking the climate can down the road. There's more, of course. The person they accuse of purity politics is often the one who spotlights any or all of these issues from outside of the power core, and the person who demands that the positions change. The person they accuse of purity politics is the one who is doing a democracy. So in reality, the liberal core has erected this wall of ideological certainty, and they want to keep it pure. And for me, the eternal symbol of what this looks like will always be that moment where the Harris campaign, after having stonewalled the uncommitted movement for months before the convention, then decides they don't have a single speaking spot for a Palestinian speaker. And then Harris can't even abide a few protesters interrupting her speech without putting up her hand to dismiss and reassert her authority and reestablish the pure joy vibes set up by the Beyonce walk-up. So they are the pure ones thinking about the heartland. They are the ones whose commitments can never be forsaken. They are the ones who are standing on principle, except that their principles are disgusting. So this page isn't about giving advice, but what I would say is that when you hear this argument thrown in your face for the simple reason that you've expressed some kind of moral backbone over an issue impacting a vulnerable population, please know that you are not the Puritan for challenging the homogenous edifice of power in the US. And lastly, if you are a Democrat who is using this line, maybe without thinking about it too much, maybe out of a sense of impatience with online debate or fatigue over how difficult democracy is, I would ask that you think more carefully about it. Because if you think using this inside out accusation will build the coalition you say your opponents are scuttling, you're mistaken. Honesty demands that you at least own what you are doing. If maintaining the status quo of late capitalism is your primary value, fine, own it. Then we can actually have a conversation.